Hi there. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about trim menopause and what we're going to be doing in the group. And I have a bonus presentation on sleep and hormones at the end of this. So if you can, please stick around for that. A little overview of what we're doing. This is an 8-week program. For our very first trim menopause program, I might extend it to 9 weeks just so that we can have an extra week in the Google Classroom. But normally you get 1 week in the Google Classroom. I'm in there with you. We're going through all of this material. It's a great place to really get the foundations and the education before you're actually implementing. I think sometimes what can be hard in our onboarding is trying to figure it out as you're learning. And so I wanted to just separate those out because this is such a big difference when you're talking about menopause. That is a major change that's happening and it's permanent. And so even if you're in perimenopause, it's just helpful to kind of know what's coming. And even if you're in postmenopause, it's great to be able to see what the new normal is now and kind of what's happening to your body as you continue to age and you continue to do so without these key hormones. So it's 1 week in the Google Classroom, maybe two for our first group to have that extra week. And then it's followed by 7 weeks of active implementation in our Trim app. And that's where you're really taking what you've learned and you're applying it. And you'll still have access to the Google Classroom throughout the whole program. So it's great because you'll get to go back there and see some of those foundational pieces. Then throughout the program in the moderator section, I'm going to be continuing with education and continuing to enrich each week with new educational material. So I really like to think of this as an educational class. I mean, you are really learning. This is part of you kind of understanding what's happening from the ground floor up so that when you leave this program, you know exactly what to do. This isn't a program you're going to keep doing. This is a program you're going to do once so that you know what's going on. And then you can do this on your own. You can jump back in with maybe a trainer you already have a relationship with and get into their VIP, or we'll have a menopause VIP. Some of the core principles we're going over in this group is one, we're going to be talking about inflammation. That's a big one. We want to be reducing inflammation because you're already going to have a low grade amount of inflammation coming into this to begin with. You're going to have just that low state inflammation just because you're aging, just because you're going through this hormonal change. And then if we add things onto that, that can mean more inflammation. If we have a lot of excess body weight that we're carrying, that can cause inflammation. If we're having some blood sugar issues, that can cause inflammation. So we don't really want to be adding onto that. And I'll talk about some of the differences with boot camp and why we're doing it different. But it all comes back to that inflammation and the fact that we're already having systemic inflammation that we really need to address when we're going through perimenopause and menopause. The other component that we're really going to talk about in the Google Classroom is sleep optimization. We want to prioritize that quality sleep, right? It's a foundational element for overall health and well-being. There's no way that you can really see the positive effects of weight loss if you're not really sleeping at night. It's kind of a key thing that has to happen. You can really easily get into overtraining syndrome if you're not eating enough calories and you're not sleeping and you have all this inflammation already and you're still trying to work out like you did when you were 20. So we want to just get that under control. Next, and this is a big module, is our balanced nutrition. We are talking about macro tracking. We've got a couple different macro sets, but what I love about these specialty groups is I can get in there and make one exactly for you, customized exactly for you and where you are. So I have 3 that I'm kind of working with, but I will look at each person. Everybody's going to take a quiz before they come in so that I know exactly which system is maybe having more symptoms and more inflammation and more problems. And that really helps me tailor make a program for you. So we'll be doing the macro tracking. And then we have Mediterranean diet emphasis. We're going to prioritize plant-based, low glycemic index foods that not only are just good for you and they're just going to fuel your body, they're going to be giving you the vitamin and nutrients that you need for these 3 key aspects in our body, our brain health, our heart health, and our gut health. But also, they're going to be supporting your liver health. That's another really important organ that we kind of get into in this class, talking about what we need to do to support that and be really thinking of that. We don't want to overtax that. That's another key component to get under control before really weight loss can happen. We're going to be incorporating some anti-inflammatory foods. That kind of goes without saying. Since we have this chronic inflammation already, we want to be talking about what foods are going to help be anti-inflammatory, that are going to be more soothing to my body, that are going to be helping with that systemic inflammation that I already have going. So those are things like Leafy greens, berries, fatty fish, nuts, seeds, olive oil, turmeric, things that align with the Mediterranean diet and blue zone principles. And that's the next thing. We're going to be talking about the blue zone. These are areas throughout the world that have been well studied and documented where people are living well beyond expectation. And it's not just surviving beyond expectation, they are living well. They are thriving. They are actively supported, but also actively involved in their communities. And we look at what that is. There's one key area in particular that I really like, where you're seeing this happen for women living into their 90s and just really thriving. And I think that's what we're trying for here with this group is we're trying to think about we're in this later season of life now. We've made this turn there. And while we still have a lot of vibrancy and a lot left to give, we don't want to not be fueling ourselves and thinking about how can I support myself and set myself up well so that I can age well and so that I have cognitive function, I have good cardiac health, I have good gut and liver health. And so we're going to be looking at those things too. Lower sat fat and trans fats, our fats in this program are going to come from healthy fats, like avocados, olive oil, nuts, things like that, not from trans fats, not from, junk food and processed food. This is a time in your life where you really, every little thing you do matters because of that systemic inflammation that happens when we're aging. Your body just really can't tolerate other things like it maybe used to. It's like, well, I used to do this when I was in my 20s and 30s. Well, you're in your 50s, 40s, whatever now. That's going to get 60s. That's going to get a little harder. We're also talking about low glycemic foods. When we're talking about carbohydrates, we're not really talking about these carbohydrates that are starchy and stripped from their nutrients. We're talking about complex carbs. We're talking about carbs that are high in fiber, and those carbs are already going to be low in on the glycemic index. And I really go into a little bit about why that is and what's happening to your body and why you will be more kind of sensitive to insulin issues and blood sugar issues, and also cardiac health, vascular stiffness, things like that. Intermittent fasting, we do still recommend a 16-hour fast with an 8-hour eating window. However, that may change based on what you're bringing to the table, what your goals are, where you're coming from. I think 12 hours is the minimum because that's just what's healthy for digestion. And for some people, I may say 12 hours is appropriate for you. I think that's where you need to stay. For other people, the 16 hours could work for them. What I will say with that eating window is I really want people to stop eating after dinner. That's where really a lot of the late night snacking is happening that's not being utilized well for your body. You have to think of it as fuel. And if you're going to fuel your car to sit in a parking lot, for a month, that's not really helping. You need to fuel it when it can use it. You're going to fill up for gas right before you're going to go out of town. You need to make sure you're on a full tank, right? So same thing kind of applies here in that you're not going to fuel yourself right before you're going to bed. All of that is going to turn into your body has to store that. It's not using that. So we want to stop after dinner and really not eat then and start eating sometime in the morning when our body really needs that fuel. Now, some people like to delay that a little bit, and that's fine too. Again, I can work with each person. We don't do low calorie and low carb days. There's a big reason why we don't do those things, and it comes down again to that systemic inflammation. I go over that in detail in our program because we really have to address inflammation first and foremost in this group. Physical activity, we have some daily walking. I encourage regular walking, especially in the morning, to support the circadian rhythm and overall health. But hear me with this. If you can't do this in the morning, that is perfectly fine. I don't do this every morning. If I was having a lot of sleep issues, I would do this in the morning, and I would really or use a light therapy of some kind to really get my circadian rhythm back on track. And we can talk about that if that's a symptom that you're having. But for me right now, I'm not really as concerned about that. And there are other times in the day where I can walk with my father, who's in his late 70s, or walk with my husband after dinner. And those times are more beneficial for me because of that community aspect that we talk about in the group, where you need to be connecting with other people to live well and to thrive throughout your life. So those things become more important. So again, I think what I love about these groups is there's nuance here that we can talk about and really figure out the right thing for you. Strength training, we're promoting resistance training 2 to 3 times per week to help maintain muscle and really boost metabolism. I've got Val working on a bunch of different exercises that really are going to help with balance. They're going to help with muscle building, but in ways that are not as not as high impact. They're not as inflammatory, and they're better for people that are in this stage of life. So we've got tailor-made exercises that you're not going to find in the regular boot camp. And then steady state cardio. Again, we don't do HIIT for the same reason we don't do calorie cycling, carb cycling. It's inflammation. And we go over that a little bit more together while we're working. But the idea is we still want to be strengthening our heart. The better that your heart can beat, meaning that the lower your heart rate is at rest, the less strain and stress you're putting on that organ, which means it will benefit you longer. It's not going to wear out as much, right? In theory, you are going to be able to have a healthy heart. And so we really want to still be strengthening that. I think sometimes that gets thrown out the window when we're just looking at how we look and like, well, I want muscle because I want to look fit. We also want to truly be fit on the inside, not just on the outside. And cardiovascular health is a really important factor in that. So we definitely do that. We don't do the HIIT again because of inflammation. However, if you're through menopause, you don't have these symptoms, you've taken the questionnaire, it looks like HIIT's okay for you and you enjoy that, we can talk about it. We talked a little bit about the blue zones already. Just again, this group is about enhancing longevity and overall well-being while we're getting healthy and getting fit and losing weight. Again, liver support, we're going to talk about the dietary choices that aid in estrogen clearance and reduce the risk of fatty liver disease. You know, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is quickly growing. It's a big problem. And I think part of that is our obsession with high quantity of fats and protein and things that are happening, especially when we're already in a susceptible place like menopause. Hormone replacement therapy, we talk about some of the options there. Again, I am not a physician. Any of this information are just recommendations. They're just things that I've learned in my certification program, but I am not your doctor. And so you would need to talk with your medical care facility or physician to really determine the right course of action for you and what's going to make the most sense for you with all of your background and all of their expertise for really any of this. So again, this is all educational based for you. Hydration, importance of proper hydration and managing menopause symptoms such as hot flashes, night sweats, fatigue. Hydration is like easy as that sounds, really does support overall health. It supports your digestion, your circulation, your energy levels. It's really essential for muscle function recovery and effective workouts. We're going to be talking about and getting some education on different vitamins, minerals, and supplements that you can have during menopause that may help support some of the symptoms that you have, that will help support bone health, muscle function, energy levels, and inflammation management. We also go into the two different types of fat that we have. There's white fat and there's brown fat. We're going to talk about turning white fat into metabolically active brown fat. That happens through specific dietary choices. It happens through certain types of foods in addition to incorporating some regular exercise. We'll talk about that. And then also we talk about alcohol limitation. And I know that this isn't a fun topic, but you may have already just kind of found this out. If you are in the middle of menopause, you will find that it's harder for you to drink the way that you might have in your 20s or 30s. And there's a big reason for that. And it's how your body is processing. If there is a big change that happened, those hormones were helping with some of that processing. And so I would say during this program, if you can abstain, I would 100% recommend that. If that's hard for you to do, I would absolutely employ the 80-20 rule. That's what I really recommend for most all of this stuff. You will not be perfect all the time. You will not be able to eat Mediterranean all the time. You're not going to be able to do your daily walks all the time. You're not going to be able to do all this stuff all the time. You're not perfect. You're not a robot. You're a person living your life with a lot of other people, with a lot of other factors that go into your schedule. And so it's an 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, try to do the things that you can do that are healthy and that are going to benefit you for the long term. 20% of the time, you can have some flexibility and do what's needed in that moment. And that's totally understandable. Assessment tools, we have our client quiz where everybody takes that quiz so I can understand your level of inflammation and hormone health and menopause symptoms. And we'll be doing all of this in the Google Classroom. So just wanted to do a quick overview for you. Hope that was helpful as we're learning this menopause program. I already have some moderator posts that I'm really excited about. that I'm doing, that I will be sharing with you guys, and I'm adding to that each week as I think about it. The first two that I already have is we're going to go, when we get into the Google Classroom, we're talking about brain health, gut health, and heart health, and how those things are impacted by menopause. We talk a lot about the liver in the Google Classroom, but I want to go into those other aspects because brain health is so important as we age, as well as the others. So we want to talk about how can we do this well? How can we have cognitive function, cardiovascular health, gut health, and then vitamin D and fat cells, and really what we're talking about there and how well you're utilizing vitamin D and what you may need to do in order to utilize that better. So I'll continue to be having topics like that for you, and I'm really excited to get started.